Hello and welcome back to Heroic Stats, an Any Heroics podcast. My name is Stephen. I'm, of course, the captain of Any Heroics, the only team to elect their captain based on the size of their art collection. Not actually the largest art collection, just the second largest, obviously to prevent any controversies there. I am, of course, today joined, as always, by Jordan O'Brien, watcher aficionado, the man you always see on the podcast. John, the intern, and Dave, the guy who actually knows how to play the game and is good at it. Say hi, everybody.
I've been known to play.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
We love to see it. If you're new here, why haven't you been listening to us before? We, of course, do rundowns on GBHL tournaments, international tournaments, or cheeky spoiler, and all the good things happening in the hobby. We haven't actually talked about the new Arnold models because I said good things happening in the hobby, not things to shore up a faction that's already very strong. But yeah, that's what we're here to do. Let's talk about some hobby stuff. What's everyone been up to?
I have painted up a bunch of Iron Hills for Nations Cup to lend out, and started working on the last remnants of Dragon Emperor Legion for Stephen.
How many?
So effective.
How many armies are you lending out?
Lending out the Iron Hills half of Adam's army, and then technically that's the only one I'm lending. So okay. You've acquired the Emperor.
I have acquired the Emperor. Jordan, what have you been up to in the last week since we saw you?
I mean, we had the Gates of Gondolin, so I had to do a few little bits for that. My hobby is always very slow unless there's a tournament and I need models for it. I'm very much a contrast painter, but I have had to put a few things together in anticipation of a certain tournament coming up in the next week or so, just to make sure that everything is ready for that.
Yeah, I recently got a spider in the post from you that I totally forgot I'd lent to you. So thanks for that. That's appreciated.
You're welcome. Yeah. It's the benefits of having a franking machine at work. Free postage, baby.
Same. And Mr. Maggot down the bottom, Mr. Farmer, what have you been up to?
Painting for first time in a while. I painted some Rangers, stuck some axes on some Rangers. For mysterious purposes that I alluded to, but I mean the lists are out now, so into the Thillian, hoping to get that done over the weekend when we've got the long weekend. I imagine I'll be paying right up until the deadline though, just because that's what I'm like.
Yeah, you've just reminded me that I need to check if I've got the Rangers that you want to acquire off me.
It's not absolutely essential, but if you've got them, I'll take them.
I can lend you some Rangers as well, Dave, if you need.
Don't need lending, mate. Don't need lending. I want getting. The point being,
what about you, Stephen?
I haven't done any hobbying, and my excuse is I'm sick. Sick in the head.
Fuck, boy.
I'm sick as fuck, boy. Yeah, I'm just going to use the age-old excuse that I'm moving in 4 days' time. So.
He's been moving in 4 days for years.
Yeah, I've been using the excuse for a good month or two now, and it's really going well. But before we get on with the podcast, it's time for Dave's strip show. John, you play the music. Check out those shoulders.
Spotify listeners will be confused.
Yes, and YouTube listeners will be confused as well. Feelings for Dave.
I have always admired your shoulders, Dave, from afar.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you've got nice shoulders.
I'm a very petite little man.
Shoulders.
It's like Dave having two smaller heads. I
remember you trying to strangle me in the car on the way home on Saturday, Jordan. I don't know if you remember that.
Did Jordan get really drunk again?
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
This was before the fight as well. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on to, of course, our lovely affiliate, Seventh City Wargaming. Seventh City Collectibles, rather. Oops. Run by a friend of the channel, World Champion, or at least he has a hand in running it. Stockists of your favorite systems. They will buy your second-hand armies from you. You can buy second-hand armies from them. You can buy cards. I know the intern recently bought some Lorcana from them and pulled a lovely Cinderella card that's worth quite a lot of money. They also do just your standard wargaming supplies as well. Go there to hang out, eat the food. Lovely place, lovely staff. If you're ever in Nottingham, go there. So thank you
Not
very much
actually
for
really in
affiliating with us.
the Nottingham, Greater Nottingham area, you might say. It's
Okay,
not
yeah, the
actually
Greater
in
Nottingham area.
Derbyshire.
Anywhere in the UK is what I will say.
there.
Check out the link in the description to get all your wargaming supplies from them.
Actually, I'll let you off because it says Nottingham on the little fluff piece that we've presented.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Will sent you that as well, so that is from the
Yeah,
source.
so I
of-
trust his
of-
judgment on that front.
Yeah.
I trust Will's judgment on a lot of things.
You can
Oh,
also
boy.
buy event tickets through our affiliate link for events such as
Oh yeah,
the Gates of Gondolin, a GBHL 100
Ooh,
that happened
I
this
see what you did
weekend.
Lovely
there.
link.
you can't
Lovely
buy
link.
tickets for it though.
No, this event has now gone. Don't try and buy tickets for
It's
it.
happened.
It's still available. It's over. It's Jova, bro. Gates of
Over.
Gondolin, GBH. This last year was one of the highlights of the year, I would say.
It was
We
my
have
favourite tournament of last year.
We have a little Any Heroics plus Dave Farmer slash Heroic Stats Facebook chat, and it's literally named after this tournament. We had a lovely time in a caravan. Dave wasn't involved, but that's not the point. Dave is
I was
now
involved in
heavily
the tournament.
involved.
I won it.
You did win it last year.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, hopefully
In fact,
you
I do
repeated
recall,
that and
shout
you're
out-
not a scrub not winning this year.
Shout out the podcast, Entmoot podcast. That's there's a very funny interview with Jordan on that, which was released quite late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry just lost the footage, well, lost the sound, and then discovered it later. And there's a very funny interview with Jordan where he excitedly explains the Watcher to a slightly bemused
Yeah. Again, also after quite
Harry
a lot
Parker.
of
Early on in your love affair with old Gbhl.
yeah, I'd also had quite a lot to drink that day as well. There's a theme here, guys.
It's a tournament. It's a tournament.
If there's
Yeah,
a
We know
bar,
what that means.
Jordan not coming in the top half.
I came 11th for Gondolin actually, so
Oh yeah, you did. You came one place
Yeah.
above me, as you will.
Yeah,
you should
yeah.
remind me. But on to the
Anyway.
2024 tournament. The TO was, of course, the lovely world champion. We always absolutely gargle on his balls for how good of a TO he is, and I'm sure this was no exception. It was hosted in Nottingham at his current venue of choice, which is a parish hall in Risley. Is it Risley?
Yeah.
No, it's Trowell. It's Trowell. Sorry.
Trowell.
There were 42
Risley
players.
is, although it is near Risley,
It is
actually,
near
really
Risley.
near. Yeah, they're really near each other.
42 players, 800 points, 6 games total of random scenarios drawn on the day, and you needed 2 heroes whose points were equal to or over 250 points in total. So, for example,
Combined.
1 hero, which was 249 points, and 1 hero, which was at least 1 point.
Yeah,
it was models,
Yeah,
I think,
so-
not heroes.
yeah, it was models. It didn't have
Was
to
it
be
models?
heroes.
5
Yeah,
in
yeah.
10.
So trolls
We'll
could
get a new one
could
next
pull it
week.
off.
Yeah.
The what I would say about this was we were all a little bit confused as to what this restriction was sort of supposed to be implementing. No shade on it really. It's just it was a bit like it cuts out certain army lists, but like not other very powerful army lists. It was like, so you can't play Riders of Theoden because there's no combination of 2 heroes in that list that can go over 250. You can't play Assault on Lothlorien, which arguably that's a very good list. But then stuff like Mordor Suladan or Dragon Emperor or Angmar were completely untouched, and you were kind of like a bit strange, but you know.
I'm sure Dave, you'll agree with me. This is probably a callback to the tournaments of old, where you used to have to but they used to have requirements of you have 2 heroes whose value equals greater than X, just to get people to bring their fancy tools like Aragorn LSR, or things like that, to prevent as much hoarding out as possible.
Yeah, I mean, back then it would be pretty common. I mean, to be fair, even then, some of the best lists available would easily pass this restriction. It was just, it was the kind of thing you used to see more often back then to try and encourage people to not take the named heroes rather than the generic cheapo captains or the 3 might versions like Gorbag and that lot were very common. Back then.
The most sporting was Ben Haslam, lovely bloke. He's won many most sporting events before. And best painted was Jakob Krokmal. I've only just read that, and that's put a big smile on my face because Jakob is well known for his gaming ferocity and also indeed his most sporting ability. And he's now also a painting aficionado. So well done, Jakob.
He's now completed the GBHL 100 Triple Crown, which I think is pretty cool. He's won one. He's won a best paint, and he's won a most supporting. I do want to shout out that both of those awards were ties. Jakob did have the same amount of best paint votes as our own handsome intern John Partridge and his beautiful Angmar. But the tiebreaker was position, and it's also worth pointing out that Ben was tied on most supporting votes with Niall. I can't recall his surname, I'm afraid. John, you also played him, but he was a lovely bloke. I can attest to that. And he came one position lower than Ben, so they were essentially tied, almost the same position in finishing the same amount of points. But unfortunately, the swag can only go to one player. So
this is a picture of Jakob's lovely Rivendell army and Last Alliance.
Oh, that cloak work is absolutely gorgeous. I love that.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't added in editing. These are the
Well,
genuine reactions of Jordan, Stephen, and Dave here.
Speaking from experience, that is a very nicely painted army. He played at the finale as well, and it's the same army as he played at the finale. It's very nice. His Kurdan in particular is really good looking.
So let's
that really does
switch
stand out,
to
actually.
let's switch to a new name. Oh no, it's the same name. Jakob, of course, pipped me to the painting post because he's far better at the game than I am, and he took third place with his Rivendell Numenor. His leader was Glorfindel with Asfaloth and the armor of Gondolin, 1 Rivendell knight with shield, 8 high elves with shield, 3 elves with spear and shield, 3 elves with spear and bow. Then Kurdan leads 3 more elves with shield, 3 more elves with bow and spear. Isildur leads the Numenor contingent with the horse and the ring, and then he's got a captain of Numenor with no extra equipment, leading 1 warrior with banner, 6 warriors of Numenor with spear and shield, and 4 warriors of Numenor with spear and bow. What do we think of this one, team? We've seen it before.
It's the classic flavor of the month at the moment. We're seeing a lot of Last Alliance / let's just call it Rivendell Numenor, because true Last Alliance would of course have Gil-galad and Elendil or Elrond in there. It's designed for one purpose, and that is as an anti-meta list. Dave's about to interrupt me, but if I keep talking, he won't be able to, because it's got strength 4, it's got fight 5, it's good into Dragon Emperor. You've got a really good tech piece in Círdan and a really good tech piece in Isildur with the ring. Isildur's also incredibly cheap for what he provides to the list. And you've also got a really nice cheap Marcher and a Captain of Numenor. He is, of course, 25 points cheaper than a High Elf Captain, and also has resistant to magic, which in an army list... Yeah, while he's with the 6 of Isildur, but for these purposes, you would, of course, if you're a player of Jakob's caliber, be able to achieve that. It's got a good amount of bows. The only thing that lets it down slightly is it's got a relatively low model count at 800 points. Now, having said that, you've got Glorfindel as a beat stick and Isildur as a beat stick, and the battle line is quite solid at fight 5, strength 4.
A point about this was there was quite a lot of, well, for one thing, you needed to have this one that had the rule about the big hero things, but what I would also say is this tournament had a quite long round timer. It was 2.5 hours, so we saw that good armies were more edging out in popularity, perhaps a little more than they usually would at 800 points, simply because they can outlast. So something like this, where normally you feel a lot of pressure to start fast and get ground out quick by like a couple of wraiths and some nasty lines, can instead deploy much further back and say, all right, buddy boy, I'm going to shoot you for 3 or 4 more turns than I would otherwise, soften you up just that little bit more and make use of it, because it does have a decent amount of shooting. It's got 10 bows, 11 bows, and it has a... Wait, does it have 11 bows?
Yeah, it has
11
bows. Rivendell Knight.
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah, I always forget he has one. So yeah, you can sit back with a with your blinding light without worrying too much about getting shot yourself, and just pick them off. It's got all the tools you need. It's got the ring to deal with big scaries, other than something like Sauron and whatnot. It's got Aura of Command, so you don't worry about terror. It's got Glorfindel and Isildur, who both have built-in anti-magic. It's a neat little list. Strength 4 means that fight 4 d6 lines, of which there are several, are going to struggle against this fight 5 partially strength 4 line. Yeah, it's a good list.
I'm
As
guessing
you
the
say,
captain's just there for March.
pretty much, and so that
March and
Isildur can
numbers.
be a one. So that Isildur can be a one drop as well.
Yeah.
Because this is a strong list, especially in Good v Evil, where because it nullifies a lot of Evil's best tricks. And in Good v Good, I mean, having the ring means something like Bjornings have just zero play against you at all, because you blinding light, you outshoot them, and then when they get to you, you say, "All right, mate, I'm not going to have to take Terror Test to charge your bears, and then I'm going to halve their 5 value, and then you just blow them up." It's just a impossible matchup for bears.
Yeah, and a strength 5 Isildur or even a strength 4 Glorfindel with enchanted blades, getting all those rerolls is very nice.
Absolutely.
Because the last thing you want is your big hero trying to heroic combat off like a single goblin or something, and they just completely flubs the to-win roll.
Exactly. So it's a good list. I think it's very solid. I think Good was more appealing in general for this tournament for the long round times.
Yeah, but I really struggled with the long round times. I think.
Yeah.
I think
we'll come around to talking about
Angmar
your
was
list sort of
shade.
indirectly in a bit, John.
Yeah,
but,
Angmar was at a severe disadvantage due to the length of the round, so I think only a really skillful player could probably do well with it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
A list that we aren't going to see on the podium, but we did see taking 4th and 5th place was 2 very similar versions of Lothlorien Erebor.
Reclaimed. It was
which is
pretty similar to the finale winning list from last year.
Yeah. So Thorin, Biffa, Galadriel, 40 lads.
Now, actually, that Jake Rawson, who was taking that list, actually finished on the same exact VP diff as Jakob with the same TPs, and I think he had like 3 less VP scored. So it was a very, very close third battle between 3rd and 4th.
So that list to me, it feels a little bit similar to this Last Alliance list. Kind of, you've got your big beater, you've got your one caster. Obviously, there are differences. What do you think is kind of in a vacuum? It's hard to answer the stronger list.
It's the same logic. I think personally, I mean, I like March a lot, but also I like numbers, and D7 gives you a lot of play. Fight 6 spears pikes give you a lot of play. So for me, I think frontline Erebor reclaimed like Iron Hills Dwarves backed up by Galathrym with Galadriel is stronger, but it's not a lot in it because you get 40 models, and also for me, I don't like not having March, but in a 2.5 hour game, you have the time to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I think as well, like for me with like now starting to use Wraiths a lot more, I'd rather come up against Círdan because one Sap Will can get rid of Blinding Light for a turn, whereas Galadriel's a lot harder to shut down will wise.
Well, I would say Wraiths tend to be paired up with Terra, and having access to auto-passing Terra is really good. And once those are up, you can just not cash with him and have 2 free dice to resist every turn anyway. So it's a little bit harder to sap his will than some people like to imply. Cough. The Golems gamers like to imply that. Yeah, that wasn't a real cough, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, for me, I think that's slightly stronger. But personally, I like it less because I very rarely would run a list without March because I just think March. Well, the ring is great. As I said, it's uncounterable in certain things.
I think also adding Terra to your own models against in a Good versus Evil, where Evil has naturally low courage in comparison to Good armies. Like your standard Evil model is going to have at most courage 3, unless it's Black Numenorians. So Círdan is an excellent tech piece for that purpose of he just makes everything cause terror. Which means that
good model.
with your elite army amount, you can just kind of go, well, I've got fewer models, but we're getting engagements on my terms. I'm ganging up where I want to.
A bit more so, yeah.
Shall we move on to the second place list, which I'm sure is a very standard list at the moment?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the next thing that all the net listers copy. It was David Farmer.
Who?
Dave, run us through your list.
Well, this is the list that
meta.
I affectionately call a load of old shit. Because it's got a load of old shit in it. It's Gbhl, army leader from Misty Mountains, allied with Lothlorien in Galadriel, leading 6 Wood Elves with Elfbow and Wood Elf Spear, 4 guards of the Galathrym Court, 5 Wood Elf Warriors with the Spear, and then a Galathrym banner with Spear and Shield, so for the D6. Then we've got Meriadoc from the Shire with a pony and a shield, leading 15 Hobbit Militia with the Battling Brandybuck Strength 3 upgrade. And then we've got Farmer Maggot with his 3 dogs and 9 Hobbit archers. And then to round it all out, we've got Boromir of Gondor on horse with no other upgrades. So this list is majoritively D3, which can be a little hard to make work. And it doesn't have a lot of impressive pieces apart from the big fellas. So Gwaihir and Boromir, who I've discovered from experience, painful experience, have a tendency to fuck up as soon as you try and rely on them. Gwaihir's heroic combat. As soon as the sentence "heroic combat" falls out of your mouth, Gwaihir suddenly becomes unable to roll anything higher than a 3, which is just classic. But this is a really fun list to play with because everything dies extremely quickly. You break extremely quickly because if you have one bad round, you lose half your army. And there's nothing more fun than putting a couple of Glathrim Court pikes behind Farmer Maggot and chuckling as he chops through your opponent's elite troops because he's actually really killy for as hobbits go. He's got 2 attacks, strength 3, but with the option of piercing strike up to 4 with a 2-handed weapon. So he actually kills D6 troops extremely effectively, as evidenced in my 5th game against Mordor Suladan, where he killed, I think, about 6 and absolutely bodied Suladan as well. He didn't actually get the final hit on Suladan, but he killed his horse and did a couple of wounds.
I heard he also did some horrible things to a certain dwarf.
Oh yeah, he did 2 wounds to Durin, which is great. That was against our associate and any heroics legend Elliot Clode in game 2, which was good fun for me and slightly less fun for Elliot. Although he did have the distinction of being the only person to wound Gwaihir all weekend. So Gwaihir is many things. In fact, actually, there was a debate before this about whether I should have Galadriel or Gwaihir as the leader, because Galadriel is extremely easy to keep safe in a list like this. And if they're getting on Galadriel, you've probably lost anyway, barring some unusual circumstances in Maelstrom. But Galadriel's warband is basically the strongest warband in this thing. Like 4 guards the Glathrim Court with Wood Elves. You can always go 2-handed at the front with Wood Elves while being backed by 2 Glathrim Court Guard. In fact, I did that quite a lot in my final game because I was fighting Fountain Court and Boromir with the flag. So I felt the need to get the fight 6. And essentially, I created a choke point where I only allowed my opponent to fight Gwaihir, Boromir, or Wood Elves backed by pikes, so that he was always fighting fight 6. I was always getting my rerolls, and I was killing things better than he was killing me back. Because otherwise, a 45 model Minas Tirith army with loads of D7 versus an army like this, which has only got 3 more models, it's hard. But yeah, it was good fun. I lost my first game, which gave me a much easier run than some of the other podium finishers. I ended up 5-1, and I only had a couple of games that I could have considered extremely challenging. I think weirdly, Seize the Prize, which is a very good scenario with Gwaihir, ended up being extremely difficult against Elliot, where he was using Khazad-dûm. He gave me a very hard game, and even though I ended up winning it fairly comfortably, it was quite sketchy for large portions of the game because this list doesn't do anything reliably, which is why I like it. Hence why I call it a load of old shit.
So in short, what you're saying is don't take this list if you want to do well. Do take this list if you want to have fun.
Yeah, or if you want to, like, lists like this are semi-popular if you're looking for a good horde, because now that the Lake Town engine has been removed from an alliance, if you want to get a ton of good bods on the table, hobbits are kind of the only way to do it. Or you can do like yellow alliances with Lake Town militia, but they're just not quite as appealing price-wise. And even then, hobbits aren't great.
Yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't recommend net listing this. John.
I look at this army.
The hobbits are coming.
It's already ordered from Seven City. Link in the description below. The issue I had, because I discussed this list a bit with Dave, I was like, but if you just lose 10 fights, you lose 10 hobbits. And then, because let's be honest, as soon as you lose a fight, you are losing your frontline hobbit, really, aren't you? Because your opponent has 2 chances to roll a 4. And maybe if you're piercing striking with one of them as well, they go a bit lower, you know.
Well, think positively though. That means odds are good for me piercing striking against D6 models.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna die anyway.
Yes.
That's that positive mental attitude. But no, what I'll say is this list works really well when you roll well, and it doesn't work very well if you don't.
So basically, you broke this list to ruin the podium stats and make John's graph even wider.
Exactly. Get the Shire in there, baby. Farmer Maggot is my namesake, and I love him.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Cool.
Don't worry, Dave. I've done this graph correctly. Shire on there today.
Excellent. Moving
should
on.
we look at first place?
Yeah, let's look at first place.
First
Jordan.
place was...
Jordan, give us a rundown.
Of this one?
Yeah.
Of Angmar, how it works, all the rules. This is Angmar, 800 points, 48 models. It's the Witch King of Angmar, as you'd expect. He's got 3 Might, 5 Will, 3 Fate. He's obviously got the crown and the armored horse, actually, which is must have been, I wouldn't have, yeah, must have been 5 points spare.
Feeling bougie.
Yeah, I like it. You've got 1 Angmar Orc with banner, shield, spear, 5 with shield, 4 with spear, 1 with shield and spear, 1 spectre, a shade, a 5 Angmar Orc with shield, 4 Angmar Orc with spear, 1 with shield and spear, and another spectre. Then we've got an Angmar captain on Warg. 5 Angmar Orcs with shield, 5 with spear. Got Berda, the big troll boy. 4 Angmar Orcs with shield, 4 with spear, 1 Angmar rider with shield and throwing spears, and then a 3rd spectre. And then we've got Golfinball, Orc captain, with the, what's the rule? The girth.
Yeah, he's got
He
blubbery
has
mass, but the shit version.
He's a
Well,
big fat
okay,
boy.
so he's on a warg, and I think the fun thing about this. So for me, I talked with Jasmine about this. So there's a real
Yeah,
like
shout out to
tech.
Jasmine Tetley, who actually
Yes,
won
we
the
didn't
tournament.
actually
I don't
call
think
out
we
who
need
said
a
it. Well,
friend
congratulations,
of the channel,
Jasmine.
been a host before.
Yeah, she podiumed with Angmar that time as well. Another shade list. Worth pointing out that the shade and double captain on Warg is pretty good. I know she's gone for the armored horse, and she has explicitly told me that that's basically just because she thinks it's a bit more kingly. She doesn't think it's like a lot better. She thinks it's enough better to buy it. I don't agree, but like whatever. I think if you drop that and the shield on the Angmar Orc captain, you could get there's 10 spare points you could play with. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much. Because the bones of the list are going to be the same. 48 models, 3 specters with a shade, with Berda, 2 mounted captains who can grind troops extremely effectively within a shade. Like that's some good stuff. And while
Jasmine
talking
would,
about the list, sorry, go on, John.
So Jasmine would 100% say that Golfinball was the MVP of the weekend for her. Like, I think we spoke a fair bit about that particular model, and she was very happy with how he performed for her over that weekend.
So Golfinball's a funny one because he is buried in the appendix at the back of probably the least used book in the game, which is the Scaring of the Shire book, which brings in a bunch of not that good Hobbit heroes and not that good Ruffian heroes, and some very not that good legendary legions. But buried at the very back in the Angmar list, for God knows why, is a Orc chieftain by the name of Golfinball, who's a hero of fortitude. Essentially, he's an Orc captain who can't have a shield, but instead of a pick, he has a mace, a 1.5 mace. He has fight 3 instead of fight 4, but he has strike, and he has 2 might, 2 will, and 5+, as you said, it's immense girth or something like that.
I think
In
it's
which
6
he
plus.
can ignore wounds on a 5+, I think it is.
Is it 6?
Yeah.
I thought he
it's a
had the
5+.
2-hand as well, but have I maybe
No,
got
it's a
that wrong?
1.5 mace. And importantly, though, he's courage 4. Now, this came up. So before this actually happened, Jasmine was telling me, she was like, courage 4 is surprisingly useful in Angmar. And I agree. Courage 4, especially with 2 will points behind it, means that you have that another standfast that you can actually depend on. Because Berda is courage 4, but he only has 1 will, and he's often at the front and can get tagged. Whereas Orc captain, you can sit behind the line, clutch it out. It's worth it. Well, actually, it's a 4+ shoot value as well. How weird. Despite not having any bows of any sort. But in her final game, in Command of the Battlefield against Jake, she failed a courage test on a 1 and a 2 on Golfinball. He was solo holding 1 board quarter, and he happened to have 1 might left. Now, a normal Orc captain would have been dead and
1 will.
on, but because Golfinball has the higher courage and 2 will points, and he had a might left over, he was able to clutch it and stick around and hold the board quarter, which was just chef's kiss. which didn't stop Jasmine from winning the tournament, but it would have given Jake third place, which is kind of funny. Golden Ball sticking around did that. But yeah, what can I say about this list? Shades are very good. And in a meta where people are picking lists around the idea that you're playing long games so you can play good lists without March and things, while a Shade does have a time limit on it, Shades go extremely effectively into stuff like Emperors, into stuff like Last Alliance with 36 models. Like, I know that Jasmine beat Jakob's one loss was against Jasmine, and it was because he just did not have a long enough round to fight slow, and the Shade just mulched enough of his army and held him up that he had to deploy really far back, and then he wasn't able to get on the objectives in time. And similar thing happened to Jake, because Shade's over counter to the good side battle line. You can build the best battle line you want, but if someone pops a Shade on the table, it does nothing against it.
Yeah, I played, I took a very similar list, wasn't anywhere near as successful as Jasmine, but played Sam Grattan taking Grimbeorn and Thranduil. So he had a really strong battle line, Beornings backed by Fight 6 Palace Guard with spears, and the Shade just meant my orcs were suddenly Fight 11 outfighting kind of 32-point frontline spear combos.
Yeah,
with 12
more than that with Palace Guard, 34 points. And you're just like, hey, my 10 points of orcs just beat your ass. Woo!
What would win?
Let's go.
One potentially shape-shifting giant man with an axe and an immortal elf, or one Piercy boy
fighting in the dark.
It's the Piercy boy, baby, all day. But yeah, it's funny how that really changed itself, and it's really interesting to me that the counter to something like Barndor with the two wraiths, with the front line of Black Numenorians backed by Morans with Suladan gets countered hard by like a really effective good battle line, like your Erebor Reclaimed backed by Lothlorien, where you've got like high strength, you're not getting killed easily, you've got the higher fight, you can play slow, you can grind through, and then in turn that is countered by Shade. But Shade Angmar is countered pretty heavily by standard Barndor, because you have double transfix and you can just be like, no Shade for you, and then you just run over the basic orcs while it's doing nothing.
The orcs can't fucking charge because they're effective courage 1 charging ones. So.
And you're charging them back with courage 4 or 5. Or 3, depending on how many models you have.
RuneScape fans will understand the combat triangle.
Triangle. Now, I actually quite like that. Like, people complain about the Shade a lot, but I think when it's locked in currently, how it's locked in the Angmar list, and there's limited things you can take with it, I actually think it's very balanced and it serves an important purpose to the meta. What I would say is that may not be true in the near future, as and when Angmar get random new models that break the game again, which I'm hoping that they do, just because let's change something. Let's go crazy.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, I hate Shades, but that's just because I like big heroes. As a concept, they're really cool.
You hate Shades because you hate looking cool. It's a sunglasses reference. Anyway, let's get moving.
Right, let's look at the GBHL podium stats. As Dave alluded to, the graph has gotten wider. We're still cutting off.
Damn, boy, she's thick.
Only do well at 90s. The Shire has slipped onto there with 1 GBHL 100 podium. Mordor still running the show. 600s, 690s. Isengard second place for hundreds. Angmar starting to creep up now. It's got 300 podiums and
300 podiums.
I knew someone was going to say that.
How many? Sorry. How many tournaments have there been, bro?
I'm going to edit out my pause so it's even longer.
That's
so
good.
That you just look mad. No, that's too much editing. We don't do that here. What else is doing well? Rivendell still doing very well in 90s and has now jumped onto the 100 podium with Jakob's third place finish. Army of Lake Town, we saw that be quite popular at the start of the year, and we know the kind of, I think that might be all just the Swindon boys.
It's a smaller size, and also as well. 90s tend to...
Sean Creed as well.
Yeah, well, 90s tend to be played at smaller points levels, which means the Army of Lake Town is better, because on 90s are often 1 day, because if it's 2 days, people are less interested, and 1 day means you want to get more games, which means you want to have 4 games. If you want to have 4 games, you can't have that long games because otherwise it just becomes unwieldy.
Yeah.
You can't have 2 big armies in that case. I think it's interesting. This was pointed out to me. I saw this on the competitive chat, and I haven't actually verified that because I'm lazy, but it was said that there hasn't been a winner of a Gbhl 100 by a good side army in a non-good v evil format, which I think is interesting
This year.
this year.
If you give me a second, we can verify those claims.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure the only time good side armies have won was at the GT, and also
Yeah, so
Into the West, which was good v evil optional.
so these are the winning. Mordor's 1-2, Isengard's 1-2, Angmar's 1-2, Dark Spider Queen's 1-1, Riders of Theoden has 1-1.
Yeah, that
Serpent
was
Horde is
GT.
1-1.
That was the GT.
Yeah,
me
Dragon
this.
Emperor has 1.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I've just had a quick look
Yeah.
at the calendar and
Yeah.
named all the lists in my head.
you
I think
go.
it's quite telling of where the meta is at the moment. That, and also it's something that I had in my head earlier on today, and in fact I said to both Sam Grattan, shout out Columns Gamers, and obviously John. I am going to an international tournament, which we might talk about later, and I am playing an evil army, and I'm like, cool. I don't have to play into any of the horrible evil stuff like AOL, Black Riders, Angmar, Serpent Horde shooting spam, Isengard ballistas, things like that. There's no good list beyond maybe Rangers of Athelion and maybe Vanquishers that you turn up at the table and you go, ah, fuck.
Well, we found at the teams event we did last year that generally in most of our formats, the 3 evil sides on both teams would win,
Yeah.
and it was only if like one of our good players happened to beat an evil side that we then maybe win the round. But generally, evil did beat good in good versus evil.
Yeah,
Generally.
I mean, in our round draw, it was because all of the evil players on both teams won,
Yeah, which was quite
Yeah.
funny.
and so it was an overall draw, which is pretty indicative of the meta. Another thing I would point out as well is that Ali pointed this out in the comments. Is this Gondolin is the first, it's the first tournament this year at 800 points, at higher than 700 or 765 was the highest was City of Kings, but before that it's been all 700 or below. And he said sort of felt like this is where good side starts to become actually dominant. And if you look at the top 10 at Gates of Gondolin, 6 of them are good sides, and all 5 of those were 2 through 6. So first place is Angmar, but then 2 to 6 are all good sides with alliances.
There was a lot of Lothlorien as well, wasn't there? I think was there 6 in the top 7?
Part of the, well, it's part of
6 in
the
the top
Erebor
8.
Acclaimed thing.
Yeah.
And James Gbhl with his
Right.
Galadriel Isildur Legolas thing.
Yeah. So, what sort of armies would we see at good versus evil high points meta if only there was an international team tournament coming up in Antwerp, Belgium, the 1st and 2nd of June, and 180 different lists that we could look at that were going to it.
160.
Maths is
Yeah,
hard.
it's not the darts, John.
180. So we're gonna save
Unless you've
going
written
through
20 extra lists. Keep them in the pocket.
Maybe. We're gonna save going through kind of lists in detail and kind of talking more about the event for another pod. But we wanted to get you the kind of cutting edge news and see what lists were coming up. So
Yeah,
we'll look
just
at
before we
evil
do,
first.
sorry, can you just go back? Firstly,
Hello.
this is a upcoming international tournament hosted in Europe. It's hosted by a trifecta of UK tournament organizer vets, world champion Michael Bradford, Ali King, with also assistance from Matt King. I'm probably forgetting a name somewhere here or there. It's going to be streamed by Battle Camper, so go check them out on YouTube. There is a streaming link. There's also a Facebook group. If you search for the Nations Cup Middle Earth SBG and you ask to join the group, all the information will be there. You can watch competitive games. It's also going to be, there's some really cool evening socials going on. In fact, we're all going to be there, the 4 of us.
Yeah, but across 3 different teams, which is
across
quite
3
funny.
different teams. So yeah, if you see us, come say hi. If you see us and you don't want to come say hi, don't come say hi. Yeah, it's going to be a really good time and really looking forward to it next year as well.
You want to buy me a nice Belgian beer? I'm open to
Yeah,
it.
if you're playing Jordan and you think he might beat you, just buy him 2 beers. It's what I do every game.
Get him started.
He's cooking.
He be
Oh
cooking.
yeah.
Right, let's look at the evil faction percentage frequency. We all know that the intern loves graphs. So this shows kind of what percentage of teams have brought this particular faction. And then in the next slide, we'll look at how those kind of lists actually break down. So most popular is Dragon Emperor with 90%. That's 18 out of 20 teams bringing a Dragon Emperor list.
Surprise me.
16 teams have brought Mordor with 80%. And I think 15 teams have brought AOL as our kind of top 3.
Worth pointing out that
surprised.
each team has brought 4 good and 4 evil lists, even though they're only going to be playing with 3 of them. They've declared 4, and they will reveal which ones they're actually bringing at the tournament, which is essentially to allow for a certain amount of flexibility and creativity in your list building. So it's worth pointing out that certain lists, like the Dragon Emperor, I expect to see almost that many, but I reckon at least one of them will not bring the Dragon Emperor. It's if you're looking for another list, to fill out your faction lists, the Dragon Emperor is extremely reliable, and there's no other list in Evil that really behaves like that. It's basically like a good army in the Evil side in a lot of ways. Like, it has that level of reliability, that high defense, low strength, really dependent buffy heroes. It's very much more like what you'd expect to see on the good side. Fight 6 heroes, all that stuff.
It's like a Ministerial on steroids, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. I mean, Ministerial kind of feels a bit chumpy when you look at by comparison.
And I mean,
so like
AOL as well.
Well, that's why, for that reason, like, I think everyone is going to, well, like, as you see, 75% of the teams, so 15 of them have just thought, okay, well, we need an AOL player because it's that kind of meta-defining list. Having access to one improves your ability to draft favorable matchups. It improves so much. So I would expect almost everyone who's declared their AOL to bring it. Probably only 1 or 2 don't.
Yeah, it was very much a conversation that we had at the start of our team talk. Was we need an AOL and we need a Dragon Emperor just because they are so consistent. And
I remember that chat.
Yeah,
that was a good chat. That was Stephen.
AOL is AOL also really good in good versus evil. Because if good lists tend to have big heroes, then you can obviously do the nasty things to them. And if they have low numbers, you can shoot them. Obviously, going into Blinding Light can be an issue, but it's still effective.
It's absolutely fine. I've heard on good authority that AOL is at least a draw into every list in every scenario.
There's a smattering of Isenguards, will be mostly crossbows with some bomb play in there. Ballistas, I suspect that won't come as much as is in there, and the same with the Assault on Helm's Deep, because good side has access to 3 different Blinding Light users in a way that Evil just doesn't. So using heavy Evil shooting that doesn't also have flexibility like the AOL is a lot less appealing. I mean, people will probably still bring it and it will still be good, and if you can draft it correctly. But I would imagine there'll be at least a few good sides that will have Círdan, Gandalf, and Galadriel in their list selection, which makes it hard to play something like Isengard, because you'll be like, okay, it's Blinding Light no matter where you look.
So some of those Isenguards are actually paired with Mordor, and talking about the Mordor list is probably a good time to switch over to kind of the actual list breakdown. So it's skewed massively by Dragon Emperor, AOL, their legendary legions. In terms of kind of pure builds, we've got 6 Angmars. Generally don't see them allying. 4 pure Isengard, but then looking at some of the Mordor variations, we've got 4 Mordor Serpent Horde, that sort of traditional barn door build. 4 Mordor Spider Queen.
Mordor Moria. Is that you, Jordan?
I couldn't possibly comment.
All I can say is, given the amount of Blinding Light lists I've seen, the Watcher lists may have its shoes.
Yeah. And then we've got Mordor Moria Spider Queen, 2 of those. Isengard Moria, 1 of those. Isengard Mordor Serpent Horde, 1 of those. Sorry, Dave. The thing that was quite interesting is that a lot of these Mordor lists weren't actually led by the Witch King.
Shadow Lord. Yeah.
There's a lot of Shadow Lord. There's
But having
Gbhl,
the
leading
tools to
one.
deal with the shooting meta basically defines the meta in a way.
Yeah.
So shooting is powerful, and shooting can be extremely powerful, but having a variety having a variety of options with which to deal with it. So you've got the Dragon Emperor, drum and march and sprint at their face with a ton of models. You have the AOL, you can't shoot me when I can shoot you, and you've got the Shadow Lord, who is just vanilla, hard to hit me kind of vibes. So you've got some
It's the
tools
same
there.
thing. It's the same thing as taking Gandalf, Círdan,
Yeah.
or Galadriel across three
It's
lists,
the
isn't it? It's
it's
the
the Route
evil
1
equivalent.
version. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The Route 1 version. And I was mentioning that Isengard Mortal 7 one because I happen to have seen that one already, and it is a Saruman Great Beast of Gorgoroth list, which is pretty fun. I do like those lists. They're hard to deal with.
Are there any big surprises on here, or anything that you expected to see more popular that hasn't shown up very much?
No, I'm not
No.
at all surprised by this. Pitt's Legendary Legion coming up twice is marginally surprising, but I think it's decent.
I think
I know
also
David Nixon's going on a ringer team, so that's one of them, I'm sure.
some of the lists are just people taking them for fun, because of course a lot of people are just going for fun, which is
What
great.
animals?
Like nobody, well, I hope nobody is taking Barad at 800 in good versus evil and thinking it's going to be incredibly competitive. But if you do well with it, hats off to you.
When that country now wins.
Yeah. Similarly, Depths of Moria, it's seen a lot of success at 80s.
Well, there's two Dunlins actually.
Yeah, Army of Dunland at 800 points is like
Wow.
big stinky. In my opinion, you get a lot of bodies,
that-
but nothing else.
6-inch banners, Stephen. 6-inch banners.
Yeah, if only there were banners that were 6 inches, but your troops were more than Fight 3. Yes, I know you can get Fight 4 if you're supporting with the
How dare
hostiles,
you.
blah blah. Farmer Maggot's only Fight 3 when he supports. So
Farmer Maggot can't support anyone.
isn't his
Do your
pitchfork
research.
two-handed?
No, you're thinking of Farmer Cotton, you fool.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna leave now.
Farmer Maggot is the one with
well.
the potato face and the scythe, which is apparently a pick, even though that's definitely not how you could ever fight with a scythe. Anyway,
What are our predictions for the three most popular good factions then?
Lothlorien,
must be up
Rivendell.
there.
Lothlorien, Rivendell, and
Minas Tirith.
the Shire. I don't know. The Shire is actually fairly well
Lothlorien,
represented.
Minas Tirith, and Rivendell. We smashed it.
Maybe.
Not
Misty
surprised
Mountains
to
up
see.
there.
Yeah, Misty
Yeah.
Mountains, aka one-drop Gwahirs.
The big
Although
G.
if some Chad is taking like Gwahir with eagles, like good on you.
I didn't see a single great eagle in the list I looked at.
It's because
there was-
Gwahir is only 50 points
Yeah,
more.
Gwahir is only a
much,
good
much
eagle, mate.
better.
So to run down for our Spotify listeners, 14 out of 20 teams have taken Lothlorien. 13 teams have taken Minas Tirith. 13 have taken Rivendell. 9 teams have taken Gwahir. Battle of Five Armies was very popular in terms of kind of good lists. So
That's
8
kind of-
armies took that.
Sounds like some kind of combination of Thranduil, Lake Town, Legolas, or Thorin kind of vibes, right?
Yeah, so that's classed
Yeah,
as
Someone took
it has to have taken
three
Erebor
paths.
Reclaimed, Lake Town, and Hordes of Thranduil.
Yeah.
So speaking
A
of
lot of
kind
heroes
of
in there.
wide graphs, is a very wide graph,
Oh my
and this
God.
is kind of the actual list breakdown. There's a lot of variations of Lothlorien and something. Turn your phone the other way around, turn your monitor on its side.
Oh, yes. Fellowship, Minas Tirith, Rohan, Misty Mountains, the old classic.
Yeah. There's
A lot of MMs in there.
There's 2 Lothlorien Shire Gwahirs inspired
Yeah, I saw
by
those. Which
Dave
was
at the
fun.
weekend, maybe.
Yeah, they don't have Boromir
Love
though. There's cowards.
Yeah, I mean, list submission was way before Gondolin, but let's massage Dave's ego anyway, right?
That's the entire purpose of the pod.
There's an army of the dead in there, and an army of Dale.
Yes, there's one pure Army of Dead.
Army of Dead is also with Minas Tirith as well in one of them.
I'm a little bit surprised that there's only one pure Survivors of Lake Town, because I actually think 800 is a fairly good point level for it, but it can't have a banner and all that stuff,
Yeah, and
and
it
it gets
sucks
outclassed by
into
other lists.
Wraiths just go
Yeah.
high. Bye,
I mean,
children.
you do have Gandalf. I mean, not
So kind
not
of
like a
as we saw
complete
on
wash, but
the last side, where are survivors in total?
Awesome.
So survivors have
there's
got
3.
Sorry, yeah, 3 survivors of Lake Town, 2 Army of Lake Town.
There's actually 4 survivors of Lake Town. Because there's one right at the bottom.
Don't you?
Oh,
You've done
yeah.
that twice.
That's weird.
Yeah, details.
Is that 2 interns gone today?
Yeah,
In an
and there's
investigation,
also an Army of the Dead and a Dunharrow. So there's two spooky ghost boys.
in an investigation, details matter. Comment below if you know where that's from.
Interesting. There is no. Maybe I'm just missing it, but I don't see any vanquishers in the Necromancer.
There was no
Yeah,
vanquishers list.
no vanquishers, no. Which actually I did
Interesting.
find
I mean,
surprising.
I'm not complaining because I don't really like facing them, but at the same time, like
You wouldn't
I'm
be
a
playing
little
into them
surprised.
anyway.
I think they're
would
pretty
you?
good.
You're
No,
playing
I
good
wouldn't.
ones.
I wouldn't
I
like have to draft against them.
I still think they're
think-
very good in teams. There are some missions where they auto lose, but you can just bust the vanquishers player for those missions. Worst case scenario.
My issue with them, I think, is that they take up too many good profiles. They
Yeah.
eat 2 of your Blinding Light users in one list as well, which is an issue. They
Yeah.
grab Galadriel and Gandalf, and they don't allow
Mm.
Saruman in good or evil, and they take Elrond.
Yeah, you can't
so
run
you can't
Riverdale
have like
Knights.
knights with Círdan
Yeah.
or something. Not that necessarily you'd want to, but it's an option that you're losing.
So
And then
you
you
wouldn't
can't
want.
Yeah.
It feels a bit of a shame on poor Reddy there that he wasn't even mentioned at all.
You didn't give me a chance to get to him. Can't tell you the Radagast Alliance and Bayon combo.
Are you not
Was he
aware of
take-
the Radagast
was he
and
taken
Ministerious
at all?
combo?
Is there a
was
Radagast
that?
at this event?
Possibly. But I would be. There might be. Is there any Radagast Alliance? Yeah, it's another one.
I don't think I saw him at all. Actually,
No,
No, I
Radion
don't
Eagle either,
remember
which is-
seeing any Radagast
people
at
have-
all.
No, because if you
People
want
haven't opted for any of those.
Gbhl, you take him a Misty Mountain, so he's legend and can be your leader.
Mm.
Well, it's more like Radagast Alliance or Radagast, or like, I mean, to be fair, sometimes you take Radion Eagle out of White Council because you
Yeah.
can. 205 points, pretty good, and he has a slightly better matrix than he does in Radion Alliance.
Is that pure
In fact-
Arnor at 800?
Yes,
a lot of
there is
models.
one
It's like
pure.
50
I,
pure
I
Arnor.
yeah.
really
models.
hope I match into that for like the most boring grind fest in the world. If I do match into you with that, let's just say we each take a shot for each model that dies. There we go.
Well, it's a call it 1 or draw and go get a beer.
Yeah.
I was actually trying to think how I pair into that pure Arnor with hypothetically what I'm taking, the Shade Angmar list.
Well, it turns out that if they don't get the Fury, they don't last for as long.
Yeah.
And if they can't deal with the Shade, you just chop through them. Not that you're
Yeah.
taking the Shade.
Yeah. But then the orcs die very quickly on the few fights that I don't win.
There is one thing I am interested to see is the Army of Lake Town Rivendell, which I assume is going to be Glorfindel, Círdan, and then Bard with like.
Yeah, I
Bard,
can't
You have
remember.
to take Bard.
Yeah,
So-
it's got Bard
Well,
and
you
the
could,
normal
you
Lake
could just
Town
do
package.
you could just do the old 650 or 600 list with Glorfindel, Círdan, Elf Banner, plus
Yeah.
the boys, and then just throw in Bard as well. That would
The
be
issue is
800.
that takes 280 of your points, and then Bard is expensive as well, so you're probably capping out about 48 models or something.
That's
40.
all right. 48 models is
Yeah.
decent.
I guess when you got Círdan there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
Oh.
is interestingly, a thing I noticed. Seems to be a lot more of kind of the either basically Lake Town, either survivors or army popping up in alliances a lot more than we kind of see in the UK, I think. So that seems, and like the Battle of Five Armies lists, kind of having a huge amount of them plus all the survivors and the army.
It's one of the few
seems to be
things
very
that
popular on the
people
continent.
have that we can do a true like combo alliance where you get access to strength 4, you get access to
Fight 5.
like fight 5, fight 6, even in some unique cases. You get
Yeah.
Legolas and Gandalf with Running Light, who are both great combo pieces. You get
I'm-
access to all of the champions of Erebor who are really, really good. It's a
I'm
good
genuinely
setup.
looking forward at this event more than anything just to see how other nations play the game. I've been playing for a couple of years, obviously playing only in the GBHL. So like I'm used to our particular scene. It'd be interesting to see how other players go about the game, like present themselves in the game as well. Because I think you will get differences with different nationalities and how they approach it.
Absolutely. You certainly do.
Yeah,
Make it
it's
And
going
on
to be a
that
very
note,
fun weekend.
let's move on to the comments.
Oh, I thought Stephen was about to
I
marginalise another foreign nation. I got all excited.
There's still time on the
You-
podcast, John.
Wait and see what his fucking comments sound like after the tournament when he's got loads more ammunition.
Oh, after playing that horrible England A team.
Yeah. All I'm saying is there's a reason the rest of the world hates the English. And I can confirm it's the England A team.
Which
moving on to
luckily
the
won't
comments.
affect me.
Fat Hobbit Gaming 5292 Leon Smith. Shout out Leon. They had a tournament, Great Deeds of Lesser Heroes, the weekend just gone by. Sorry we haven't reported on it. That's very remiss of us. I was a little worried the podcast was losing its legitimacy without Dave. Glad to see him back. I also love to see Lothlorien performing well. Well, you have Dave back again, and he's brought Lothlorien and performed well with it. What more could you want?
First time the
Dave's the
podium for
Leon
Lost
Smith
this
plant.
I just
I
respect
hate
his agenda, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say this one juxtaposed with the comment below is perfect. So I'll do it then. I hate renewal. Continue to love the content. Seeing my beloved Rivendell limited to 90s, do you think moving Círdan/Arwen back to Fortitude would be a good idea or too much? Maybe not. Maybe not let them ally without a Valor hero. Also keen on the Dave tactic video. Always hear deployment and movement as a major factor, but those are the bits that get cut from back reps. Cheers. Firstly, yes, you're 100% right. Both Arwen and Círdan should be back to Fortitude, but only in a pure Rivendell list. That's
I
my
think Green
opinion.
Alliance should be fine. Like the Master of Lake Town, he's Valor, but only in a Green Alliance.
Yeah, potentially.
Because then you can have Círdan out. You can drop Círdan into a Numenor list, which I always thought you should be able to do anyway.
Because one of the main
It's not like
problems with both of those models is in Rivendell lists, army slots are a massive premium. The cheapest Valor hero is Glorfindel at 145 unkitted.
The onlyest Valor hero.
Well, yeah, fair point. And yeah, Arwen is basically useless outside of Rivendell Knight lists now, which is a shame because she's a glorious model and quite a unique profile, I think. Maybe not let them ally without a Valor hero. I mean, that could
It's
be
the same
argued.
thing, isn't it?
Yeah. The only thing that would let you do is take more numbers.
But it's the same logic as saying that they're Fortitude, but only in pure alliances. Green
yeah,
alliances,
exactly.
or pure lists, which is
There's
Keen on
3 or 4 Arwens going to Nations Cup actually.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
good for them.
Yeah. Always hear deployment and movement as a major factor. They are a major factor, definitely. If you're not thinking about where you're going to deploy and fight, you're already giving away part of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about a possible tactic video, which I am keen on doing, but also I kind of keen on making it not be loads of work. So I'm trying to think of a way of doing that, or sort of dragging my feet until a beautiful commenter comes up with some simple and easy to execute idea that we can just do.
Yeah.
Because that way I don't have to think too much.
I'll tell you what, if we
stress
do
about
a shot-by-shot remake of every single one of your Masters games, how about that?
Well, people did want that.
No, I mean we
But I'm not sure I wanted.
we replay every game with the armies and the
Well,
scenario.
I'm not sure I want to do that considering how games 4 and 5 went. But anyway, we moved.
Beardy Fluffbag, Chris Ryder, shout out. What are your thoughts on buys at events and their effects on results?
You should always, at the end of the event, you should always say goodbye
always say
to people
goodbye.
you know and have played and enjoyed your games with. That's just common courtesy.
I think buys are basically break tournaments.
Yeah.
To be honest,
they shouldn't be a thing in a competitive scene. You should have a roller army,
especially not in a tournament which has fewer than. I mean, 6 games. You think it won't have a huge effect, but commonly buys are given at 12-0. But giving them less than 12-0 is also unfair because it's like, well, you've not given them a chance to score big. But if you give them a 12-0, it's like sometimes certain scenarios are quite hard to 12-0 in, and it's like you've just given them an unrealistically massive advantage. Like for example, some like scenarios you never see big wins in, like Storm the Camp. You basically Storm the Camp is permanently like a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw, or maybe it's a 3-1 or something. How often do you ever see people get 12-0 in Storm the Camp? Because if someone's getting flattened, they just stay in their camp.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. You don't score the 6 points.
I
So,
got
yeah,
a bye at a tournament once, in I think it was to the death, or maybe Lords of Battle, and I got a 1-0 win for it. And I was like,
Yeah.
can I have more VPs, please? So
Yeah. But there's no
just
good
tell me
way of
why.
doing a buy. I understand that ringering is difficult, and having a buy buster where you have someone play is tough because there's a sort of etiquette thing going on. I think for me, the best way to do it, the fairest way, is to have somebody. Well, ideally, you just have an even number of players, but if you have someone who's trying their hardest to win their games and it's just stays, so you don't always play the lot. Like sometimes I see people, they just always give the last place player the ringer and then they don't really try to win. And it's like, yeah, I think the better way to do it is have someone like Ali King did this at City of Kings in 2023. Play your hardest the whole way through. Use a list that's maybe not 100% optimized, but play it to win as hard as possible in every game. And then you just keep the ringer in until basically the very end, and then you drop them from the rankings, and everyone just pushes up.
Yeah.
And essentially, I think that's the fairest way to do it, because then they're always playing appropriately to the level they should be playing at with the list they have, and they're never they're never getting an unfair experience. No one in last place is randomly getting 12-0s because the person they're playing isn't trying.
I'd also be upset going to a tournament and maybe not kind of the player that's necessarily going to win it, but without getting my full set of games.
Yeah, agreed.
I think the buy would upset me more because, okay, I take the win, I take the 3 TPs, whatever it is, but I'd rather play a game and lose than I would just get 3 TPs and stand around for an hour and a half or 2 hours.
It's the sitting around for 2 hours is quite boring, I think. So yeah, in summary, don't do buys, have a ringer available.
Don't do buys, kids.
Yeah, don't do buys.
Buys are bad for you.
Okay, nice. George Harold 2986, enjoying the podcast, guys. Keep it up. Question for next week: Arnold's already a top tier army. With the new models it's getting, are you concerned about it being too strong?
Yes.
Potentially, yes, because as previously discussed, it's got 3 main issues. One is killing power, one is mobility, and the third one is
staying power.
Oh, no, the staying power.
It just doesn't die.
No, that's a good thing. We're talking about its weaknesses.
He's talking about the weaknesses of the list as it currently exists.
Yeah, it's weak to magic. Apologies. And Cav with lances give it, war spears, not lances. We're led to believe. Give it +1 to wound Cav, which obviously do killing power, and also mobility because grabbing objectives and seizing the prize and things like that.
I think the Cav have to have war spears though, because all the warriors come with spear as standard. So that makes sense in terms of them being dismounted.
So they don't have to create dismounts. Well, I think
that swords.
I think it remains to be seen how good their new hero will be. I don't think it's going to be completely game changing as long as they don't do something stupid like price the Cav at way too cheap or like points wise. I'm fully in favor of 4-12 models being cheap, for the record.
I was surprised at the Master of Battle on the new captain. That I didn't think was necessary.
Similar to Iron Hill's captains.
I know, but I just didn't think Arnold needed a Master of Battle model.
I don't think they need it. I think they just wanted something unique. And I think you should try and make new things playably good, because then you release models like the Wind Lance and you're like, why did you even bother? Like, who's even going to use that shit? But like, you want to make him good.
Enforcer.
What are you trying to say about my boy? You're trying to say he's not very good, Denby?
Yes.
I agree. He's terrible. I think actually he's not that bad. I think the problem is he's 60 points when he should be about 30 or maybe even less. Make him 25 points and an independent hero, and maybe you might use him occasionally. Less than that, probably, actually.
John, you're an Arnold aficionado. Are you worried about it becoming too strong?
I obviously don't want to have to contend with loads of other people jumping on the bandwagon that I've already
bandwagon jumpers.
Yeah.
I think if it gets more popular, it's easier to play against it in a way, because if you can expect to see it, it'd be like turning up to a tournament without planning to see Black Numenorians, and you'd be like, you're your own fault if you do that. Whereas Arnold has always been a kind of oh, who's the millionaire who's got a whole army? You know what I mean? But now, if it does get popular and does get more available, you can reasonably expect to see a lot more of it, which makes it a little bit easier to manage. But at the same time, it's like I'm not keen.
What sort of
it's
things
boring.
would you be bringing to try and counter Arnold?
5/5 strength 4, literally anything like that. Cav, like anything that a 5/5 strength 4 line will just walk through it gradually. Maybe not very quickly, but yeah, like I mean, like characters like Suladan, characters like the Witch King or Gorbag or the Mouth of Sauron all go extremely well into Arnold because Arnold can't really do a whole lot about it other than put their heroes in the way. You just hit 2 guys and they all just smash them. It's maybe you don't kill them extremely quickly thanks to old Malbeth and his special save, but still, that's not a hard counter or anything, but it's an answer.
Yeah.
Whether or not Cav makes that harder or easier, I don't know. But yeah, if I see the profiles for those Arnold cavalry and they're like 14 points, I'm gonna flip my lid because that's way too steep.
They should be paying as a premium for something that the list doesn't currently have access to, and it's
Exactly.
shoring up their weaknesses. So
Exactly right.
make them 18 points, and then you'll take one or two. Yeah.
Thank you in advance to GW for sending me 6 cavalry and Agrabah to paint up.
I'm just annoyed. I'm just annoyed because it's going to be like 14 or 15 points. I can feel it in my bones because that's how they work out points. They don't count for context. It's annoying because Arnold's one of the lists where you could totally do that because Arnold doesn't get used extensively in alliances. You could totally just price everything with the context of it being a pure list, and that would be fair. But they're not going to do that, I don't think.
Carson Howard 9489, another one of our super fans. I look at winning and losing like I look at leadership. When I win, it's because the boys on the table did what they needed to do. When I lose, it's because I didn't put them where they could do their job properly. That's a very good way of thinking about it. Yeah. Question: what do you think about the simplicity of the Riders of Aemir Legendary Legion, and would it be viable for a GBHL? In short, no, it's not viable for a GBHL unless it's at a meme event like the Warhammer World GT.
I would love for it to be good. I would love for that Legion to be good. In principle, that Legion is sort of like the pinnacle moments of the second film. It should be so cool, but it's just not very good.
There's so many asterisks between what it does well, and it loses out on a ton of special rules that make Rohan Cav good in the first place. Like it doesn't have any equivalent to the fight value buff that Theoden gives. It doesn't give any access to roll guard. It doesn't give you. It does give you the strength on the charge, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
the one thing it does have.
You're forced to take one of the worst Rohan heroes, and don't get me wrong, he's still okay. But Aemir on the list of heroes that you're gonna take in Rohan is pretty far down the line. Because if you like Aemir, have you heard of Dernhelm, who does basically the same job, but is almost half the points? You also have to take Gandalf.
And you get Gandalf. Then I think.
But I mean, why wouldn't
he makes you? He makes you a shade for a turn, doesn't he? That's
it's
the rule,
actually worse than a shade. I think it's only if they charged, and Gandalf has to be alive.
Yeah,
it's harsh.
Yeah.
So it's not good. It doesn't actually need money changes to make it viable, which I
drop Gandalf the White by 50
with
points.
the Aemir instead of Theoden. What's that?
Drop Gandalf the White.
Gandalf the White's problems are bone deep. Let's be honest. Like,
let's say Aemir and Gandalf don't have to pay for their horses, and instead of casting, Gandalf can be a shade for a turn. There you go. Sorted.
Oh, but that was it. Doesn't one turn you declare and he gets -1 to
only when you charge. It's only when you charge, which is like admittedly in a cavalry list that should be in it anyway. But I don't know. It's just a bit sad.
I love the idea of it. I just the actuality of it doesn't quite.
The list is crap. Yeah, you basically have to skirmish the whole game, which is completely opposite to what it's supposed to actually do.
But it should be cool as fuck.
Agreed.
Master Ball UK 6780 Spotify listener here, but like to come here to comment. Thank you. Idea wise, would you consider what factions Legendary Legion work at which points? Here you say all the time, don't take this at this point, so on. But for us newbies, just get into competitive will be great. Chitter. Thanks for the comment again. A really good and simple response to this is that if a list is limited on the number of heroes it can take, for example, Felbeings of Mirkwood Legendary Legion. What's it called? Is that the name of it? Dark Den, is it?
Yeah.
No, Felbeings.
Yeah.
If it's limited by the number of heroes it can take, it's in named heroes. It's probably not good over let's say one warband above that size. For example, another good example is Vanquishes is almost only good at 800 because you need every hero to get all their effects stacking on top of each other. There are a couple.
Kirathungul is a good example.
Yeah,
Kirathungul doesn't work because you need, in order for it to make sense, you need Gorbag, Shagrat, and Shelob, and then you realistically need a Marcher. So that means that the smallest level where you can get a half decent army is about 550, 600, and then once you max out and get the other captain, and you take a banner, that's about 750. So
and
you can logically see that
new beyond that.
Yeah, as soon as everything above 750, you're not adding everything new, and below 550, you don't really have enough to make it worth justifying taking that list. That's how you logic it out, you know.
There's also legions like Dragon Emperor or Riders of Theoden, where because they've got so many options, they are effective
mandatory parts
above certain points. But Dragon Emperor, for example, you shouldn't use below say 400, 450 points because you just get the Dragon Emperor.
You just don't get the boys.
But you could use it at 1,000 with the named heroes, Dragon Knights, good numbers, acolytes, etc. So that's a good way of thinking at it. Look at the heroes available and what more you can add to the list beyond a certain point and what you lose beyond a certain point. So if you go too low, what happens? And if you go too high, what happens?
Yeah, exactly.
David Martin 9839 says, what is your read on why Lothlorien hasn't podiumed yet? Haha, Dave fixed that. Particularly considering how much you're advocating for Blinding Lights. Also curious how viable Pure Mordor is, as it seems to be winning in alliances. Lothlorien, the problem with Lothlorien is that it suffers in terms of killing power quite a lot, and we have a very high D6 meta, as in defense value 6 meta in the UK, which means that the elves will win the fights, but against classic battle lines, like let's say, for example, dwarves or Moran and Orcs, which are strength 4, even if they're winning the fights that they don't win, they then die. And it will have trouble in any grind war because, again, it will win the fights and then not do a lot. Blinding Light is really good in the shooting meta. It just is really good.
I'll take this Mordor question here as well. So the reason Pure Mordor isn't more viable is simply because it's just better to ally it. Like Pure Mordor is like fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you look at what, basically for me, the biggest issue, every time I write a Pure Mordor list, I look at Suladan and I think he's just too good not to add. If you're doing Pure Mordor, then Suladan is a green alliance. He adds superior cavalry with good archery and lances, and some of them fight 4. And he is a marching striker, hero of legend with courage 5, 6-inch banner. It's like, so the way I look at it is, if I'm not taking Suladan, I need a marcher. So that's Guritz. Guritz, and he's 60 points. And then you need a banner who's 25 points. That's 85, and then it's literally only 30 points to get Suladan on Horde, who is a much better hero in every way and has a bigger banner. So it's like, it sucks because, you know, that's just a thing. But like, there's no reason to run Pure Mordor because Suladan is basically just a drop with a couple of cav anyway.
Yeah.
So you're basically running Pure Mordor with an upgrade. It's just better in every way.
You could say a similar thing about the Spider Queen is that she is such a good tool, but the problem with Suladan is Suladan can do literally everything. He can do the marching, the striking, the killing. He's a big banner. He's got 12-inch standfast
as well.
He can do your mum. He's got resolve. The only thing he doesn't have is defense. But if he had defense, like he would be incredibly stupidly.
Let's put it this way: Guritz as your marcher isn't going to be beating face in your battle line anyway. So if Suladan isn't providing that, you're still not losing anything. You're just gaining a big banner and a bunch of cool heroics.
Also, a mobile banner as well. If you need to reposition him, he's on a cav. So
exactly.
I took him for the first time this weekend ever, and I remember saying in the car to you, Dave, on the way back from Gondolin, being like, "Suladan is good, isn't he?"
Yeah. He's like, just so consistent in every situation.
Does do everything you need him to do at every point. Like he was so good across the weekend.
And that's even in games where
I didn't. Yeah, and even in games where I didn't have to commit him.
Better.
I could have him literally at the back doing nothing, and he was still doing a lot of in my head doing nothing, but he was still doing a lot of things all of the time. He was good.
He's nuts.
Moving on to the next comment, if there are any.
That is all of them.
That is all of
Been
the
on the ground
comments.
this week. I know.
Guys.
Blimey, only 7
Whoa.
comments. Oh,
What the
I'm gonna
heck?
Gotta do better, boys.
go to
Yeah,
bed
those
and
are quite
cry
good
then.
ones. Those were good
Yeah,
ones.
that was some very good comments. So thank you all. Remember to comment, like, share, subscribe. Support your Hobbit hobby by going to 7th City, either online or in person, selling them your armies, buying their armies, buying their event tickets, etc. Remember to check out any future coverage that we will have of the Nations Cup. Keep your eyes peeled for that. And until then, stay chittery.
Chitter,
Chitter,
chitter.
chitter.
You'd better
Chitter,
stay
chitter.
cheery or else I'll find out.
Dave's always watching.
Cut the tape.